Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September meeting of the Gungahlin Community Council. My name is Peter Alford. I'm the President of the Community Council, and thank you for the bumper crowd we have tonight. It looks like half of Casey has upped and moved across this evening, but fortunately this is a great opportunity for us because it means we'll get to share some of the content we've got with you tonight with a bit of a crowd, so that's good. We also have joining us most of the executive of the Community Council, Ralitza and Henley and Darren and Kevin and others. Shah is there, sorry. So we've got most of the executive here as well. And we note that Peter Kane and Andrew Baratic are here from the Legislative Assembly. Thank you for spending the time to come out. So as usual, I'd like to remind you that we are streaming on Facebook Live, and that means everyone will be recorded. And remember, if you are speaking or asking a question, we wait to get the microphone to you, and that we then keep a recording of the meeting on Facebook. As usual, I'll provide a little bit of an update on what's been going on at the Community Council since our last meeting, as well as things that have been announced by the government that are relevant to all of us here in Gungahlin. Then we're going to be joined by David Edwards from the Gungahlin Police Station, part of the ACT Policing Service. Dave Craft, who's the officer in charge, is unavailable, and so Dave has stepped in, and it's an old joke about D1 and D2, so apparently. We've got a couple of members of the Gungahlin Mosque community going to talk a little bit about the plans they have for expanding their site. And then the blockbuster headline item at the end here, Kip from Planet will talk about the Casey Block 9 Section 132 development, a mixed-use site opposite the Casey Group Centre. So, on to the GCC update as a sound check. So the big news is, latest edition of Gunsmoke 152 is out. Those of you who can pick up and give it a wave for the crowd. Usual collection of stories, a bit of an update since the last edition, some articles on some of the long-term activities we've been involved in trying to improve the planning outcomes, trying to improve the outcomes in the town centre using planning and the planning framework, which has proven to be somewhat challenging. A focus on community and recreational facilities and some reports that are coming out in that space, and we'll probably come back to that. Some articles of general interest around safe streets, community batteries, and from Sea Change, and then an announcement of the Celebrate Gungahlin Festival, and an article on Suzanne Orr as we do a series of articles on the MLAs who represent us here in the Legislative Assembly. A quick reminder that we have 5 representatives in the electorate of Yerraby. So where do you get it? We've moved to distributing the hard copy editions through through stands in shopping centres, and somewhat to my surprise, it's gone off incredibly well. We are moving literally many hundreds of copies, and so we've got to work out how we can spend more money to print more. So if anyone's keen to see more of them out there, and so keen they want to pay for it, let me know. So that's, and of course it's available online, so you can download it and read it online. And again, some of the great artwork from local artists here. And the other big announcement and reminder is that in October we're running over a 2-week period. The Gungahlin Community and the Celebrate Gungahlin Committee are running the Celebrate Gungahlin Festival, anchored by the Gungahlin Arts Program, operated Belco Arts, with the support of our big community services providers in Gungahlin, Communities at Work and Northside, ourselves, and of course the ACT government funding through Events ACT. 3 events, I'll go back to that. On the 8th there's a sporting and wellbeing expo. On the 15th there's a cultural festival inside the town centre, and on the 22nd there's a picnic, family day picnic at Yerraby. So 3 events spread across those 3 weekends. Still time to get involved. This is the website you need to go to, celebrategungahlin.com.au, and if you want to get involved and participate and see more details of what's happening, that's where you go. Other things that have happened in the last month. So we were approached by the residents committee at Ruby Apartments, which is this building here. They've had a lot of problems with parking in this area, all these streets, including Anthony Rolfe Avenue. So this is Swain Gribble and Anthony Rolfe. Swain Gribble. And yeah, I've also marked Gozard here, but that's also a problem. So the issue is that there's simply a lack of parking. What's happened is a lot of the unit developments, for example, a 2-bedroom unit is not required to provide 2 car spots, but what's happening is that's what's happening. 2 cars are being taken up by a 2-bedroom unit, and so there's just too many cars in the area, combined with the ongoing tradie work out of this site, and the problem that the Ruby Apartments are having is also replicated in Infinity and Mezzo and Lumi, which is all the other developments. In total, the amount of parking is just not adequate. It's also not being rigorously policed and enforced by Parking Services ACT, which is not the police. Parking is enforced by the ACT government. And so they've flagged these serious issues around a lot of bad parking, a lot of people parking on median strip. It's impacting the small businesses very severely. So all the short stay parking that people would normally go to shop aren't available, and have also flagged that pedestrian access to Yerrabee Pond over from Gribble Street, which is this one here, over Gundaroo Drive is very problematic. So they're seeking everyone's support. This is a common issue that we've seen around parking not being provisioned sufficiently for units. Even when it's compliant with the Parking Vehicle and Access Code, it's really not doing the job because of a bunch of assumptions in the access code about how many people might need a car in a 1, 2, 3 bedroom unit. 323 signatures so far, which is pretty impressive in a relatively short time. I think it's open for another 2 months. And you can just get online, search ACT Assembly petitions, and you can go online and sign that up. Once you get to 500 for a petition, then that petition must be actioned or considered by the relevant committee within the Assembly, which then leads to some recommendations on what to do about it. A pretty difficult problem to solve. There's this vacant block in here that perhaps could be used for parking. If the owner of that site could make it available. And certainly there is work ongoing in parallel with this to look at problems like getting better access from the town centre area, including this, into Yerrabee Pond. And that's been part of the active travel feasibility study I'll mention in a few minutes. Anyway, so great bottom-up, community-driven activity, and our thanks to Suzanne Orr for sponsoring this petition. Every petition needs to have an MLA sponsor. I think all of you in this room are very excited to know that we now have e-scooters in Gungahlin. So that the shared e-scooter services from Bean and Neuron are now available here. And if you think it's great, you can get online and say so. If you've got some concerns about them, you can get online and say so. So this is not something that the Community Council has had a lot to do with. Other than falling under the general umbrella of everybody in Gungahlin wants pretty much what everyone else has in Canberra, so that's good in that sense. But certainly in looking at the active travel project, which I was involved in, how do you deal with end of ride? Where do you put the scooters? How do you separate scooter riders from bike riders, from pedestrians, from mums with prams and dads with prams, and it's tricky, and buses, which are a feature of the middle of our town centre. So that's the e-scooters. The other consultation it's not really a consultation, it's actually a consultancy, is interesting. So the Health Directorate put out a contract to get a consultant on board to provide guidance on what to do, what options there are for replacing the Northside Hospital in Canberra. The current Northside Hospital is on the Calvary campus. Calvary have a very long-standing relationship with the ACT government to operate that hospital that will keep going on for a long time. But the government's determined that the hospital itself, the physical hospital, is of sufficient age that it needs to be replaced. And the 2 basic options are to bulldoze the current one and build a new one on site, in fact, you could build a new one and then bulldoze the old one because there's enough space, or look for somewhere else. So the Community Council went and had a chat with the with the Health Minister in May, pointing out that 20% of Canberra's population is in Gungahlin, and we've only got 6% of the jobs, and we have quite a long way, the highest percentage of young families and children of any district in Canberra. And basically tried to make the case that they should very seriously continue to pursue the option of establishing a Northside hospital, if not in Gungahlin, somewhere very near Gungahlin, in part because we are under jobs, and this would be lend a lot of social value to Gungahlin, not just because of the health services, but because it would support directly and indirectly a whole bunch of ancillary businesses. So we have an ongoing dialogue now running with the Health Directorate, which we hadn't had before. The executive spoke with them last week, and we're still trying to confirm them for the October meeting to come and talk to that issue. One of the challenges we have is finding enough space for a hospital in Gungahlin or somewhere near Gungahlin. They're talking about a 12-hectare site, and there are various requirements around where you can and can't be, of course. And they're also looking, based on the update we had last week, on options for a slightly smaller site. But anyway, so we think this is important. There's a lot of reasons why we get put up why it shouldn't come here. A lot of the reasons why we think it should come out this way is it's hard for the Directorate to get their heads around, but it's something that would make a difference out here, I think. The other project that's underway, it's been running for a little bit now, is a complete rework and development of the Casey Recreational Park. So this is Horse Park Drive along here. Most people will be familiar with the little Springbank Pond and the big dog park area. And so this grey area here is what's being considered, well, has been proposed for a redone recreation park. And the consultation that's already underway has led to some master plans and drawings that include toilets, shade structures, barbecue and picnic areas so people come and stay longer, all abilities play equipment, multi-purpose court you see here, nature play like some of the new centres have, a flying fox, a small amphitheatre and irrigated green open space so people can run around and recreate. Also looking at a few other things, there was some work done on a micro-forest in this area, potential for a community garden and a small pump track for riders. Always worried those statements like should further funding become available. If these are important things, they should be done up front. And of course, the usual mechanisms for providing feedback and get that done by the end of October, beginning of October. So I know a lot of the Casey residents have a lot of interest in this site. So just wrapping up a few of these other things. I mentioned the Health Directorate meeting. They were going to speak this month, but ended up could not make it this month. We're hopefully get them in October. And they're talking not only about the Northside Hospital, but the election commitment to deliver a new health hub out here, which is like a walk-in health centre, but a little bit bigger. And the exact specifics of that are still to be determined, as far as we can tell. They're also looking on developing overall plans for all clinical services and improving their integrated care solution, which is trying to have all of the care services for a patient revolving around the patient rather than some disconnected journey through many sites and services. We had a meeting with the Gungahlin Mosque crew, and they'll be talking a little about their plans. We've had our first regular catch-up with Transport Canberra and City Services, a bit of a feeling out meeting, but we hope to table ongoing issues that we have coming up from the community and that we are trying to align all the activities that are going on in the region. We did a lot of work with the active travel feasibility study. A draft has been produced. Some comments on that draft have been done. And there are some real challenges in getting into the middle of Gungahlin on a bicycle or even a scooter, particularly because the middle of the town centre includes a bus interchange. And buses are, of course, as the report says, one of the greatest risks for any active travel. So, yeah, some complexity in how to get that done, given all the changes we've had in the town centre. And we have a meeting with Minister Gentleman, the Planning Minister, scheduled for tomorrow. we're following up on the indicative land release program. We spoke about that last meeting, which blocks are being sold in the town centre and for what purpose. Sometimes it's very opaque about what the plan is for those sites. We're going to again ask for some guidance on what's happening with the two large blocks at Casey that are slated to have some amount of community use. Word on the grapevine is that emergency services, the health directorate and the sport and recreation directorate, possibly for an indoor sports centre, have all expressed an interest in doing something on that site. What the hard part is, I'm not sure who they're expressing that interest to and what the process is for deciding, but that's why we're going to see the Minister. And then we continue to try and get a better outcome for the mixed-use developments. And what I mean by better outcome is a development that contributes back to the viability of the town centre, not just providing a bunch of residential accommodation, but providing commercial, retail, community and entertainment options that you would expect in a town centre. So that's all part of that. So that completes our little update. If there are any questions on anything in that, if anything comes to mind later, that would be great. But I might ask Dave Edwards to come up to the podium and talk to the ACT policing updates, and I'll get some slides up. Mouse. Oh, sorry, microphone. Dave, can you just clip that on somewhere?
I'll just hold on to it. Oh, I can find somewhere. You want me to hold something? Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. As was mentioned before, I'm Sergeant David Edwards. I'm from the Gungahlin Police Station. I'm here to give you a brief update on the current trends that we're seeing in the Gungahlin zone and associated things that we're starting to see out in the streets. So, first of all, if I can move on to the next slide. Just for a bit of background, obviously the Gungahlin zone, as I'm sure you're all aware, for policing perspective, it's the Barton Highway is essentially our border. So we go from right out the New South Wales border past Hall, all the way through to Northbourne Avenue, Federal Highway. It's a large zone, and I think out of all the policing zones in ACT, we're actually currently the largest population-wise. Gungahlin, our zone now extends to in excess of 85,000 people. It continues to be the highest growth area in the ACT. The ACT overall growth has been going up as well, but Gungahlin in particular has been growing the highest out of all of them, especially with the massive amount of development we're seeing. As was alluded to before, we're seeing a massive increase in high-density population. As we're seeing the apartments grow, the high-density population centres are starting to have an effect on what we see out in the streets. And unfortunately, people do start to see that out in your general public life. With regards to police resourcing for the Gungahlin area, so currently we're inside the joint ACT Ambulance Service Fire Brigade Police building. It's been well established that that's no longer fit for purpose. There are plans in place to change that. I believe that that building will become a purely police building. The timeframes on that will be advised. When funding is available, when we can find new sites for the other agencies that are located inside the building, we'll see how we go. Currently at the Gungahlin station, so we have 6 teams of general duties police officers, 49 sworn officers that are rotating through a 24-hour roster. In addition to that, we also have 6 sworn officers as a criminal investigations unit dedicated to the Gungahlin area that also works in with our ACT criminal investigations. Recently, we have seen an increase in members of the Gungahlin station. We have seen 6 new members come into the station as recruits in an effort to try and build up our numbers in the Gungahlin zone. We are expecting to try and fill further positions in Gungahlin and keep building that base number. The issue, as is well known, is facilities. Having somewhere to put those new officers is the issue that we're facing. We're working through it and we're working with what we have. The guys that are coming out, or the guys and girls that are coming out, are all very keen. It's just a matter of giving them a computer and something to be able to work on. The reality is that, as I've said, the ACT policing, we do acknowledge that there is a resourcing issue ACT-wide, which is why we are looking at methods of trying to find ways to be more effective in what we do and more efficient with what we have. So part of that is engaging with community groups, creating specific aspirations to try and engage with community groups and find ways that we can help the community help us so that we can actually try and have an impact. So to that end, the current trends that we're seeing in the Gungahlin zone. Firstly, as I'm sure you would have seen through the media, the stolen motor vehicles and failed to stops. So someone that refuses to pull over for a police vehicle when we put the lights and sirens on. It's one of the main issues that the ACT is facing at the moment. In response to that, ACT Policing has stood up Operation Toric, which is a dedicated task force of officers that do nothing but deal with recidivist offenders, which is our biggest issue. Toric so far has had a great impact from our point of view. I'm sure you'd continue to see through the media every time something occurs down that path, but I do want to assure you that it is having a significant impact. We are seeing less and less instances of this occurring. However, the severity is probably still the same, so you're probably still seeing the same amount of media releases, but the quantity of it occurring is decreasing with the Operation Toric members taking a proactive stance. And it's also had a flow-on effect to the offenders in Gungahlin. I mean, it goes back to that old adage that 1% of the population commits 90% of the crime. If we can deal with that 1%, then the flow-on effects of it are exponentially reduced. Burglaries, thefts and aggravated robberies, look, that is an ongoing issue that unfortunately will not go away. We are focusing on it again. We do have our proactive intervention and diversion team who also focused on trying to proactively look at ways at helping harden security for anywhere that's an ongoing issue. So their focus is any problem people, places or things. And one of those things obviously is burglaries. Again, that comes back to recidivist offenders. It's very unusual for someone to do a once-off crime of that level and then disappear. So we do have a specific team. I think we have 2 teams in the proactive unit now that are dedicated to trying to find outside of the box methods of dealing with these issues, as opposed to the standard model of receiving a report of burglary, attending, investigating, and looking to try and deal with that one issue. They try and look at that little bit bigger picture and find a strategic approach to deal with it. So on that, one of the things that the proactive unit is looking at is one of the biggest issues in Gungahlin is juveniles. Unfortunately, we are seeing an increase in antisocial behaviour from juveniles and a lack of respect for members of the public, for police and in general. To that end, one of the operations that the proactive team has stood up is Operation Grantham, which is targeted at antisocial behaviour in our main shopping centres. You may not be aware, but they actually did run an operation just last week in the Gungahlin Marketplace and Gungahlin Village. Essentially what they try and do is assist the marketplace centre management and security in identifying who the ongoing issues are, and if necessary, assist them in identifying them and then banning them, and then we'll reinforce those banning notices afterwards to try and remove them from the area. That is an ongoing operation which will go on for a number of months. There will be a number of operations with it. They do it in plain clothes, so you may not actually see them wandering around, but I assure you they are there. The next one is mental health incidents. Again, ACT, we have had mental health is a very large part of policing work, unfortunately. Police do attend a massive amount of instances where we're required to be counsellors, assistants, problem solvers. It's not meant to be a response for police from a criminal perspective. However, it is what we do. We are here to help the community. There has been the introduction, I'm not sure if it's been mentioned here before, of Operation Pacer, which is a combined unit. It's a vehicle that has a police officer, a mental health clinician, and an ambulance officer in the one car. The introduction of that has had a really, really positive impact upon mental health in ACT. Situations where police attending dressed like this can inflame a situation. Having the PACER unit attend where you have a mental health clinician there to assist and take the primary interactions and negotiations, it has had an extremely positive impact on people suffering mental health issues in the ACT. Hopefully that program will be expanded. I know they are looking at trying to make it almost 24 hours because it's not at the moment. However, when they are on, honestly, work on the streets every day, and I've seen an incredible improvement having them out there. Both for improving the police resources out there and also for the people that need help. Having a mental health clinician be able to actually attend most of those incidents and find an ongoing program to help that person have ongoing support as opposed to just that individual crisis problem solving has been fantastic. And then finally, missing persons. As I'm sure you'll see from all of the Facebook posts, missing persons is something we deal with quite a lot. A large part of that is, again, back to juveniles that disappear because they do not want to speak to us, they do not want to speak to their parents. However, there is also, again, it links into the mental health generally, the missing persons. It takes up quite a lot of our resources, but we are getting better and trying to find ways to locate people quite quickly. In regards to police advice and assistance, so thefts from apartment storage. I know they mentioned the Ruby apartments before. I guess from that point of view, we would strongly encourage people to continue reporting thefts from storage units, underground apartment complexes, etc. The biggest assistance we can get with that is trying to liaise with body corporate, strata, management, etc., to try and harden the security of those locations. CCTV is paramount, ensuring that residents are aware to be constantly vigilant of tailgating, people trying to follow you through into the underground car parking or into the apartment complexes itself. Those are the two biggest impacts we can have to try and cut down on that sort of criminal offending. And the lack of CCTV when it comes to the underground storage areas is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face trying to deal with it. The Gungahlin Village, recidivist juvenile offenders, as I said, so we have referred that through to the Proactive Intervention Deployment Diversion Team. Operation Grantham is continuing in that area, and I don't know if you may have seen it, I've already been out there myself today dealing with a few of them. And I guess the biggest thing is we encourage people to report antisocial behaviour and anything that seems suspicious or unusual. If there are police resources available, we will attend. Minor theft processes. So we are looking at a change to how we respond to minor theft. This is primarily to do with shoplifting as opposed to theft from residences. The focus of how we're doing it is we're, again, looking at trying to find ways where we can increase visibility of police on the streets. I think that is what everybody will agree they want to see, is more police out, visible, being on patrol. To that effect, we are looking at a change in how we deal with reports of minor theft from shoplifting. It means that not every instance of minor shoplifting will have police attend. However, the phone calls, when it's reported to us, the same information will be obtained, the same investigation will occur. It just requires a little bit more commitment from people reporting the thefts to us to be willing to follow through and attend court. We are seeing, the reason we're doing this is we're seeing quite a few matters lost at court through original complainants failing to attend and follow through on complaints that they've made to us. So to try and ensure that we're not losing police time, we want to make sure that people that report to us are actually willing to follow through the whole process. If that is the case, then it means that also we manage to have more people out on the road as opposed to attending shops waiting for CCTV to become available for an hour at a time, which means in a small zone like St Gungahlin, a car out of the road or off the road for an hour waiting for CCTV has a major flow-on effect to our ability to respond to other incidents. As I said before, the final thing on advice and assistance is, again, please, we do encourage everyone to report to police any suspicious behaviour. You have the option of reporting via Crime Stoppers online through the AFP webpage, or if there is something that is ongoing, please 131 444 is the correct number to call if there is something that requires police attendance but there is no immediate danger, and then 000 obviously for emergencies and immediate danger. Other than that, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask of me? Yes?
Thank you, David. Just a second.
Like this. Thank you, David, for an excellent presentation. Just one small question is that, in terms of burglary or thefts, what's the percentage of these thieves or burglars coming from the interstate?
How often do they come from interstate?
Or how many? And do you have any percentage?
Look, obviously I can't give you exact figures, but coming from interstate, I would say it's quite rare. The only thing we would see with interstate is that there are some trends for mainly recidivist offenders from Queanbeyan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a massive trend. It does occur. However, they always come back to the ACT at some point. I wouldn't say it's a significant enough issue that we have to look at a different way of dealing with it. Generally, the people that are in Queanbeyan that come here, or the people that are here that flee to Queanbeyan, will always come back, and we've got a very good relationship with the Queanbeyan police station. There's a lot of information flow back and forth there to try and address exactly that.
Why I asked it? Because, occasionally we hear the local news, they said that some of these people are coming from interstate,
Yeah.
to commit crimes, all
Look,
sorts of things.
there was a period there where there was a group of individuals coming from one particular place interstate. They were a very large contributor to our stolen motor vehicles. That was again referred to our proactive intervention unit. I think it took them 3 weeks, and they had all of them in custody.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thanks, Peter.
Any other questions for Dave? Kevin, just a second.
I'm quite interested in this CCTV stuff.
Yes.
How is that organised? Is it all private, or does the ACT government have?
Are you talking about in the apartment buildings?
Well, everywhere. I mean, how much are we being watched? And
How much of Big Brother is out there? Look, that's a difficult question to answer. If you're talking about in public spaces, then there's very obvious cameras around some of the major shopping centres. I mean, the primary one would be in the Civic town centre. There's a lot of cameras around there, absolutely. I guess what I would like to assure you is, in regards to how much you're being watched, they are not actively monitored by us at all times. It is owned by the ACT government, not by us. So for us to be able to have access to it, there are processes in place that require us to request that information or that footage, and there has to be a specific reason involved for that. I mean, the only times there is potentially members of us watching those cameras is on your Friday, Saturday nights after 9 p.m. when the lights go out. That's when we will try and have somebody actively watching those cameras. Again, though, for us to be able to utilise that footage, there are processes in place to make sure we're only getting it if there is a valid reason or a criminal offence we're investigating.
yeah, I mean, I don't mind being watched, but it seems to be quite an effective way of doing things, and
Absolutely.
it also seems that maybe you need to be able to get quicker access to what's in the shops and things.
Look, I was having this conversation just at the back of the room before. I think the primary thing that can assist us in shutting down problem issues at certain public locations is better lighting and, funnily enough, music. I don't know if anyone here remembers a long time ago at the Belconnen Mall when there used to be that old red bridge that went across. That used to be where all the problem children hung out. I definitely was not one of them. And they put some fantastic lighting there, and they started playing Michael Bublé 24 hours a day. The problem evaporated. That was a slightly out of the box way of dealing with it, but it was extremely effective, and I think a lot of the areas would probably benefit from that.
Thank you, officer, for coming down. I've got maybe a couple of questions could flow through. So do you think the resourcing that you got at the moment, that may have an impact in the community, the theft and all crimes? Would that be like if the resourcing could mitigate those scenarios?
Look, better resourcing will always make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess resourcing comes down to, our current resourcing is getting better, I will say that. And it is a specific focus of ACT to try and increase our resourcing specifically in the Gungahlin zone. Better resourcing than what we have currently would have an impact, yes. Yeah. I think the difference that it would make would be where you probably would notice it yourselves when you see us driving around